to wait a little bit till something finishes uploading. So, who else could we talk to that would have an interesting perspective on their own life at that time or any other time in history? I'm kind of curious about things like Ben. Are you still there? What did you like to eat, Ben? Hot potatoes. Dear, I liked hot potatoes with lots of cream that we would steam in the Dutch oven, and they would get crispy brown on the outside and very, very tender on the inside. Oh, those were good. And I liked a little mutton because we did have a place where they would raise sheep and keep us supplied with meat in Philadelphia when I lived there. And there was a place I would go where they had a special treat because they would fry up these fish out of the out of the catch from the bay, and they would say, "Hey, fresh fish today." And I would say, "Oh my God, if they have fresh fish, then I better run over there today and get some to eat with my ale that day." And it was a good meal for me. And they had a kind of batter that they would fry, and it would be coated in a syrup that they got from the trees in Vermont, if you please, because I didn't really think about it too much where it came from, but it was really good. And there was a delicious stew that they would make, and you could put just about anything in it and still be good because they would let it simmer all day in a big pot. And they would say, "Come and get it, it's ready." And you'd line up at the door, and they would pour some in your bowl, Then you'd find a seat, if there were any left, and you would say, wow, this is a treat today. And sometimes there would be a pheasant or two that would be very pleasant for a special meal, and a corn cob. A corn cob? Yes, a corn cob, hollowed out. And you'd take a puff or two and you'd say, phew, that does it today, 'cause I just want to go lay down and take a snooze. And I could choose a paper a day because there were several operating in that area in my day, and they had accounts of all the local happenings, and whenever they could, they would report on what was happening according to the latest information from England, you see, what was going on in the wars, etc. And the poor bastards who got sabotaged at sea. And we would read about it and say, well, that's interesting today. But of course, it was yesterday's news because it could take many weeks to get information from areas outside of the locality in order to print it in the newspapers of that day. And so we'd sit around and we'd smoke a pipe of tobacco and we'd say, hey, they're going to back her into a corner today because they're going to try to take back their redcoats and post them in the anteroom where she will have to say, go away, go away. I don't want to play with you because those damn British soldiers would try to attack the virtue of our women, you see. And we had to smack their hands down and say, hey, they don't want to lay with you, buddy. Go away. And they would say, who are you to treat me that way? And we would say, well, we are the ones who are married to this girl, you see, because we'd lie to them about it and say it was our wife, even though for the life of us, none of us had the guts to say, if you touch that girl today, We will slay you where you stand. So we just pretend it was our wife or our sister or daughter, and eventually they'd go away and leave them alone. So we kept our eyes peeled to see if those damn redcoats were on the prowl, or a skirt that they could convert into a new point of view, because they would do what men do when they are stationed far away from home, and they don't give a shit about what happens to the virtue of the girls, you see. And so we had to be pretty sly about it. And when they were about, we would shout out to the girls to stay away. And they would lay low until they could show themselves again. And so one day a man came to say, "Hey, are you Ben Franklin?" And I said, "That's me." And he said, "Well, I have a job for you." And I said, "Oh, what would it be?" And he said, "Will you come with me?" And I said, "Okay." And he took me to see this woman who was laying in her bed. And she was very red because she was covered in blood, you see, from her head to her toes, because she had been killed by one of those damned soldiers who thought he could go away with it. And we caught him, the bastard, and we strung him up at night when nobody could see that he was stripped down to his stockings, you see, and left to swing in the breeze. And they never caught us, and that taught them that we weren't going to stand by and let them try to kill our women just because they thought we were vermin, you see, because they did. They thought we were vermin. And we thought they were the most callous people you ever did see, because they had their noses in the air and they wore their hair in a way that would say, "We're better than you. We're better than you because we're English, you see, and you're just the bastard children of this nation who couldn't figure out how to be human, you see." And we had our own society that did not reflect the values of the English, you see, because we were accustomed to being independent and to working together to make things habitable for each other and to survive the Indian attacks and the incursions of the Frenchies, you see, and the alligators and the crocodiles and the other swamp creatures that would come at you in the dark. And so we would hark to the sound of a friend that would say, "Hoot like an owl today, because there's a danger this way." So we had our signals. It was a time of great danger in many ways, from the limitations on our ability to feed ourselves, house ourselves through the winters and into the springs, from our nasty brethren who didn't know enough to pay their dues when they would use someone else's property or abuse some woman or child, you see. So we had a very notorious code of conduct, you see. It was pioneer justice, you might say, and it went a long way to keep the sanity of the community. However, the British were the biggest problem we had, and we were so glad when we could finally let the other shoe drop and just let it happen the way it needed to happen. It just needed to happen the way it needed to happen. And we all put our shoulder to the wheel. But of course, a lot of people did squeal and say, "We can't fight the British today. What the fuck are you guys thinking about? We can't do that today." And we just said, "Shut up and go away, because we know what to do. We're smarter than you." And they said, "Well, if you think you're smarter than us, then show us how you got so wealthy, because you, Ben, are just a fat old man who wears your hair in a peculiar way, and we think you should stay out of it, because we don't want to hurt you, because you've been around for a long time, and you got a lot of friends around here, but we sure don't like you when you think that we have to be murdered in our beds by the British, because we're the ones that said, 'We don't like you, go away.'" And we said, "Well, if they murder you in your bed, it won't be much of a loss, will it? Because you have a yellow streak up your back that is so wide that they can't miss it, you see, for their target practice." And they would whine and cry, but we just ignored them. And we did try to get others on our side, and we did enough to say, "You're right, we have to do it today. We can't wait any longer, because if we wait any longer, we're really going to be in a pickle. And we don't want to be in a pickle, because we have to take the sickle and cut down that damn flag, because we don't want the Union Jack to jack us around anymore. And so we're going to have to raise our own flag of the United States of America." And that's what we did. And so all of you out there, you stupid people who don't know enough to get out from under that steeple, should take heed, because the only reason that you can pick your steeple is because the people who lived in that day fought the English to give you the freedom to go to church or not the way you wanted to, and to stand up and say what you got to say. And you can even say fuck if you want. And if you have any luck, then they won't haul you away and say you got to go to hell today. But if that's the way you want to play, then you can play that way. But God damn it, I'm not going to let you destroy the USA. I'm not going to let you do it. And so I got a lot to say, and I'm going to say it. And thank you, Stephanie, for giving me a forum to say it. And I know you want to hear all the details, my dear. And I'll try to feed you some just to give you something to chew on. But I'm so angry, I could bite down on a leather strap today rather than strap it around the mouth of that asshole who just won't go away and say, mea culpa, God forgive me today for trying to destroy the USA. And may all of his followers follow him into the rising sea, where they will see their trust on him lead the way to perdition. Because this edition of the USA is going to have to go away so that we can return to the principles of freedom and justice for all and not have to live in a theocracy. So give me a break and I'll take a little time to catch my breath and we can talk about it later, okay? Okay, Ben. Talk to you later.